The bye weeks are here, injuries are racking up, so it's time to make those tricky decisions around which positions we need to stream this week. But before we get into our QBs, tight ends, and some defense as well, let's have a look at the injury report. Now, the first week we did this, we had 6, and I thought I'd extend it to 8 because it looks nice on the page. And then to nitpicking of some players that might be injured, I'm now having to find the 8 most crucial injuries because we're starting to get creeping in thick and fast, aren't we?
Yeah, there's been some. I seem to remember saying this last year, but some horrible injuries, like Tyreek Hill's injury was absolutely horrible, wasn't it? And clearly Malik Neighbours, and then there's some more this week. Maybe, hopefully, less long term than those 2 injuries, but yeah, still significant nonetheless.
So a couple of wide receivers then to talk about that aren't on the screen there. So Tyreek Hill, as you said, is out for the foreseeable, and hopefully we'll be back again next year. Mike Evans also out again with that hamstring. QB, Lamar Jackson out this week with that hamstring injury. Not a surprise. You'll have been preparing for that in the week if you've got Lamar, I'm sure. JJ McCarthy still out with that ankle, starting to linger a little bit now. Bucky Irving out this week with a foot injury, which I know you're particularly grumpy about, aren't you, Ed?
I have him in several leagues, and it passed me by until today, really, that he was out. So I'm quite annoyed about that.
Trey Benson, after having all of the fab spent on him with James Conner going down, he's out for the season, out on IR. Terry McLaurin is out with a quad injury, so he was touch and go until just before time recording today. Must also be noted, Deebo Samuel has a heel injury and didn't practice Thursday either. So it's going to be an interesting situation for the Commanders. We're also going to talk about on our DFS show tomorrow. Michael Pittman didn't practice Thursday due to hamstring. He's hoped sometimes hamstring on a Thursday cropping up in the week is a precautionary thing, but that's one to monitor also. Chuba Hubbard expected to miss this week with a calf injury, not confirmed yet, but is likely to be incoming news. And then Brock Bowers did not practice Thursday with knee injury. And also to be noted, Michael Mayer was also limited with concussion. So that could have a significant impact on the Raiders this week. Any of those that have hit you the most, Ed?
Yeah, Bucky, I've got a little bit of Deebo, some Lamar as well. But yeah, I think it's already that time of year, isn't it? Like you say, buys and injuries, and you log into Sleeper and you see lots of zeros in your team, and you have to make some quick decisions.
Before we look at some of those quick decisions around our quarterbacks, please do take a moment to subscribe, like, give us a share as well. Also, get involved in the comments who you will be streaming this week. But Ed, it's time to have a look at some plug-and-play QBs, and you're also having a little bit of a look ahead to next week.
Indeed, yeah. So 3 quarterbacks to consider if you are in need. First of all, I'm flying in the face of your sit advice on the main show, and I'm suggesting that you might want to plug in Tua. As you can see, he's 28% rostered. I think you could do a lot worse this week if buys have hit your quarterback room. Yeah, look, I accept Tua's not brilliant. I'm not going to try and make that case. But he has been at least in the top 20 quarterbacks for the last 3 weeks, with 2 passing touchdowns in each game. Of course, Tyreek Hill going down is a big miss, but it was promising his instant chemistry with Darren Waller last week. And he's got the Panthers this week, who are blowing very hot and cold on defense. That they struggled last week against Drake May, who I know you said is better than Tua. But yeah, I think you could do worse than Tua this week. CJ Stroud is an interesting one to me. He's starting to settle into the new scheme at Houston and looked very solid against the Titans in week 4 after a tough couple of weeks to start the season. Look, we know Stroud's got huge talent, and it'd be great to see him get back to his rookie season form. It's all about his opponent this week. Sorry, Mark. And the Ravens are giving up the 3rd most points per game to quarterbacks, just under 23 points. Admittedly, the Ravens have already faced Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and CJ Stroud is not quite in that company. But at 57% rostered, he's currently only starting in 24% of leagues. That feels like it should be higher this week, certainly. And finally, I know he played last night as the 49ers surprisingly snatched that win. But yeah, I've got to mention Matt Stafford. Look out for him on waivers this week. Still only 61% rostered. I understand that. Obviously, people were nervous pre-season with injury concerns, but after a steady start, he's really exploded the last couple of weeks. And you know what? His partnership with Puka is reminding me of the Stafford Cooper Cup partnership that took them all the way to the Super Bowl. And he's got the Ravens and the Jags before the Rams bye, and both teams are in the bottom 10 defense when it comes to receiving yards. So basically, if Matt Stafford's available in your league, get him, would be my advice. And can I just mention Mac Jones at the moment, who's been excellent deputising for Brock Purdy. Purdy's likely to come back in when fit, but I don't really think it should be that clear cut because Mac Jones has actually looked pretty good. I'm not suggesting you plug him in because he might not play another game, but yeah, he's been excellent.
And you're right, you could do a lot worse than you could start Cooper Rush or Jake Browning this week. So.
Indeed, yeah.
Sometimes needs must. Moving on to our streaming tight ends then. I've got players at a few different points here, depending on what you need and who is in your league. So firstly, Dallas Goedert, not widely available at 73% rostered, but is worth a look. Sat out Wednesday and limited Thursday, but if he's fit, he always offers touchdown upside. I'll be honest, after last week's tight end 1 performance, I'm surprised he's not in the mid-high 80s rostership at the minute, especially when people are going to be without a few players as well this week. Brenton Strange, I think we seem to mention Brenton Strange every week at the minute.
Feels like
as we said on the main show, he's not flashy at all, but he offers you a steady floor. And sometimes he's a sort of player I could imagine when look at the end of the season, he'll have kind of like boringly worked himself to be tight end 9 or 10 on the season just because he's always got about 10-ish points each week. And that's sometimes what happens at tight end. He could do a good job again this week, and he's had 7 targets in his last 2 games. So that is promising with regards to his usage. I mean, probably Trevor Lawrence is just throwing to the nearest person he can get the ball to at this stage. So maybe that's the reason. Darren Waller last week could have been a flash in the pan. So this is not a getting carried away pick. His rostership has gone up each day since waivers passed earlier this week. So may not be available in your leagues. With Hill out, his 4 targets last week, including 2 touchdowns, was promising enough to consider playing him this week if you are looking for somebody, especially at Carolina, who are giving up just over 15 fantasy points per game to tight ends, the 6th most in the league. So a few kind of indicators there. If you're needing to stream a tight end this week, he could be an option for you. And we'll finish up with a player that is widely available in case you really are in a tough spot, because sometimes when the bye weeks and injuries hit, beggars cannot be choosers when it comes to tight end position. So K. Dodson is yet to have a fantasy relevant game, but the Seattle Seahawks are giving up the most fantasy points to tight ends so far this season at 18.55. So if you are in a tough spot and you're really having to plug someone you're not confident on, there is at least a route to some success with K. Dotton. Any of those you're having to plug in this weekend, or any of those you're relying on consistently? Dallas Goedert, possibly for some people.
Yeah, I've got Goddard in a couple of leagues. K. Dotton, I think we've mentioned this before, is just a bit inexplicable to me. He should be performing and should be getting you decent points in that offense. But yeah, he hasn't been for whatever reason. So it will be interesting if he does produce this week against the Seahawks. You know, with Mike Evans and Bucky Irving out, there's chances there for him potentially.
So once again, please do take a moment to subscribe, like, give us a share as well. And then each week you will be able to hear some exceptional wisdom from Ed, Ed, tell everybody once more, what is the best way to go about playing the defense position if you have defenses in your fantasy rosters?
Stream your defenses, people. That is my new catchphrase. I'm consistently proved right with this, of course. Let's start off with the Jags. Currently, the Jags are the second best fantasy defense after 4 weeks, and they're still only 17% rostered, which probably doesn't make much sense at the moment. 3 weeks of double-figure scores, with their worst score coming against the Bengals in week 2, and they still managed 8 points then. Now, they do have a tough run of games coming up, so that might explain why people haven't gone in on the Jags. And it's starting this week against the Chiefs, who will be buoyed by their destruction of the Ravens. So I'd understand if you chose to hang fire on the Jags, but they're so improved on defense, and they're making plays, so they look good for a few points regardless of the opponent. But yeah, one to consider. The Seahawks, more highly rostered than the Jags at 66%, and they're currently the third best fantasy defense with 4 very solid scores in the bank. I mean, it's a tough assignment against Baker and the Bucs this week, but as we've just mentioned, Bucky Irving out, Mike Evans out, so that's going to make life a little bit easier for the Seahawks defense. So you might want to see if they're rostered. And in the middle there, the Colts, up to 57% rostered, a huge jump of 39% recently, following a big score against the Titans in week 3. They always seem good for an interception. And who've they got this week? Mr. Geno Smith and the Raiders. Geno has thrown the most interceptions in the first 4 weeks, 7. So I'm going to give you an Ed guarantee of at least 1 more against the Colts defense this week.
That is one of the safer Ed guarantees I think we've had.
Okay. True.
Right, next up, something different from our usual formula for this show. We're going to have a look at the TH Fantasy Football Bestball Bonanza. So those who aren't aware, this is a charity bestball tournament that we run each year in support of the Beast and Memory Cafe, a local charity over here just outside Nottingham in the UK, supporting those living with dementia and their carers. And we just thought we'd have a little bit of update where we're up to, those people playing, so you can see a few things we're looking at the moment within that, and also a little dip in the toe of the water, something to have in the back of your mind if you have not been involved and you would like to be next year. So, Ed, first up, I have got our current top 10 in points for across all leagues. So, how you qualify for the playoffs in the Best Ball Bonanza is it's the winner of each division, so 17 10-team divisions, and then it's the rest of the lineup is for the playoffs is made up from the highest scores. So Matty B4949, currently top of the pile from the Tom and Jerry League. So all leagues this year are named after children's TV shows. What better thing to name a fantasy football division after? Alex O'Bro, Thundercats, just behind. There is, I say big, at the minute, 12 points is nothing. But this is the first time we've seen a little bit of a breakaway, and that could swap around. We've then got a little band there, Cruiser 128, Morriman 84, A-Bolts 91, BD 10, following behind as well. 5 Yard Rush Murph of the 5 Yard Rush podcast over here in the UK as well. Wardy 145, Lee Scott 2406, and Bridgewater's Finest as well, making up the top 10.
They all absolutely roll off the tongue, don't they, those names?
They do. I know that everyone can read them on there, but it's nice to have your thing read out, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Hear your sleeper ID that you made and now can't change read out on a podcast that you tune into for the first time. But yeah, currently at the moment, Rick and Morty and the Ren and Stimpy leagues are making up a good push. So with 17 leagues to have 2 appearances in the top 10, that is very good representation for those 2 divisions. What I'd like to also point out is some of the commonalities in this top 10. So the top 3 teams, Ed, all have 1 running back in common. Who do you think that is? Cast your votes for those watching at home. And don't read the notes. I know you're looking at the notes right now, but pretend we're guessing.
I'm going to go for Mr. Touchdown Regression himself, who hasn't regressed in his touchdowns, James Cook.
James Cook is that common denominator in the top 3 currently. 5 of the top 10 also have at quarterback Josh Allen. So that has proven to be an excellent choice for people to take that quarterback draft spot early. And that never pays off. We know that drafting a QB early never pays off, except in this best ball tournament so far. 4 teams in the top 10 each have JSN, Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery as well. Now, I'm not sure Monty has done a huge service there, but it's nice to see him being a cornerstone of the top 10. I've then had a little look at ADP, so the average draft position for each of these teams currently in the top 10. It makes me laugh every single year when someone is allocated at 9 or 10 and they see there's no 3rd round reversal. Worst is I'm never going to be able to compete. I can't possibly. Everyone thinks that being right at the start of the draft is really, really useful. But the average draft position of the current top 10 teams is 5.3. So actually a mid to later spot has been more fruitful. 5 of the top 10 positions made up from people who drafted 4th or 5th, with 4th being the most common draft spot with 3 teams. How many teams, Ed, drafted at number 1 and how many drafted at number 10 of this top 10 do you think?
I don't know. Enlighten me, Mark.
1 has drafted first and 1 drafted 10. So we have proved, guaranteed, the most perfect way to any research that we don't have to dispute it anymore. It doesn't make a difference if you draft first or last, it would seem, at least at the minute. We've got a long way to go. Maybe that will change. And finally, Ed, I would like to have a shout out to Danny Lawrence, who with 453.10 points is 170th out of 170 teams. Congratulations, Mr. Lawrence. A 285-point gap to the top. You can make that up. We believe in you. I want to see that Danny climbing up those rankings. So, Danny, I know there's nothing you can possibly do. It's Bestball. We draft and we forget, but we're rooting for you.
Danny, if it makes you feel any better, a couple of weeks ago, I was bang last in the JTT Cup, and there are over 700 people in that league. So it could be a lot worse.
It absolutely could. Yeah, that was far more humbling than being the bottom of 170.
I was almost in tears when I saw that.
And then finally, I'd like to have a look at our all-time top 10 weekly scores. So we made the decision last year that we would keep our scoring and our rosters identical from last year onwards, so we could track all-time top 10. And congratulations to Murrayman84, because his score in week 3 of 229.60 is the 10th highest score we have had over the whole of the last 2 seasons so far. And it'd be nice to see a few more people getting into that. Obviously, we look back at that. Week 14 and 11 last year were biggies. So maybe we'll have a couple of people getting in there as well.
I've got a feeling they might have involved Jamar Chase.
Actually, if we look back, they will have been the Jamar Chase playing the Ravens weeks, wouldn't they?
Yeah, quite possibly, yeah.
Well, Ed, that is all for another Friday show. Anything you wish to add?
No, just enjoy another great weekend of NFL.
Well, that's all from me. It's all from Ed. So, as always, bada bing, bada bye. Malcolm, take us home.
You have been listening to the team from TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Twitter and Instagram.